Hello, we're opening this lesson with divisions and classes. If you're just joining us, please preview the previous videos in this series as this one begins where the last ended. Earlier, we introduced the attribute ID. Now we're going to bring to light its sister attribute, class. Like ID, class gives an element identification, but in class cases, it's not singular, but can be attributed to several elements across several pages. For example, say that I have several article elements that will all have the same characteristics. Instead of listing these attributes repeatedly for each element, I would assign them to one class in my style sheet and assign that class to each element in my HTML sheet. With this in mind, we're going to create a division container in our header that will encase all the elements in our header and give it class valued wrap. After this, we will go to our style sheet, and under our header IMG element, we will select the class element dot wrap and give it the attributes width valued at 80% and the attribute margin valued at 0 auto. On the HTML style sheet, encase within the header element a division class element valued wrap, which encases every other element on the page. Encase within your header element a division class element with a value of wrap. That encases every other element within it. Now, from there, on the style sheet, we want to select a class element dot wrap and give it the attributes width valued at 80% and a margin valued at 0 auto. Within the class element, within the CSS sheet, we want to create a class attribute wrap. On your CSS sheets, just as IDs elements start with a pound symbol or a hashtag, class elements begin with a period or a dot. So within the CSS sheet, we create a class element dot wrap with attributes width value at 80% and margin valued at 0 auto. Once again, within your CSS style sheet, create a class element .wrap with attributes with valued at 80% and margin valued at 0 auto. In the style sheets, all classes are indicated with a period, as IDs are indicated with a hashtag or a pound. And as a shortcut for the dimensions of margin, the 0 represents the top and bottom dimensions, and the auto represents the left and right. So instead of having 4 different dimensions, we can identify the 4 different dimensions with 2 dimensions, with 0 as the top and bottom dimension, auto as the left and right. Save, refresh, review. Now let's create the navigation links. We will be creating links to 4 pages that have not yet been created. Let's go to the HTML style sheet, and between the nav tags, place an unordered list element, UL. In our HTML sheet, between our nav tags, or within the nav element, we want to place an unordered list element, UL. In case between the UL element, let's put 4 list item elements. So in case between the UL elements, or the UL tags, we want to put 4 list item elements. Like so. On this closing tag, you got an angle, your backslash, L, and an I. Figured I'd explain that because it kind of looks like 2 L's. Angle bracket, backslash, L, I, angle bracket. Now between each of the list item elements, or between each of the list item tags, we want to include one of the 4 pages that we want to link to: home, about, gallery, and video. So between each one of these list item elements, we want to include one of the pages that we want to link to: home, about, gallery, and video. However you identify this page between your list item, it has to be identified within that HTML of that page that you want to link to. So if you're using one capital letter followed by small lowercase letters, then it has to be represented that way on the HTML page that you create later. If you use all caps, then it has to be identified as all caps in your HTML page. Once again, on your HTML sheet, we want to create encased within the div class wrap element, and after the div class ID title element, a navigation element that parents a UL element which parents 4 list item elements, each tagged one of 4 pages in page specific order: home, about, gallery, and video. Save, refresh, review. Immediately, you can see that the text is walking all over the paragraph text. The reason for this is that the browser sees each piece of information as one item. It literally lists each item one below another until we instruct it to do otherwise. Second problem, the list is black, and once in the header, we will not be able to see it. First, we want to create links out of each link element by adding anchor elements within them, encasing each of their tags, thereby turning them blue, the default color of links within the browser. Inside of each link element, we want to encase an anchor tag with an href element for the first one, this goes to the home page, which is index.html. Should put home there. For the next one, let me put my closing link. For the next page, anchor tag, href attribute, valued, what's the next one? About. Closing anchor tag, /li. That's li. Next one, link, anchor tag, href, valued at, what's it, gallery, HTML. Be the page we create. Its name. Gallery. Our closing anchor tag. And then our closing link. And finally, our link, our opening anchor tag, href. Sorry, each one of these hrefs have an equal between them, of course. Video. .html. Video. Main. Opening tag. Closing tag. And the closing li. Once again, inside of each link element, encase an anchor element, linking it to the list element's specific page. First, within the first one, we want to put our index HTML, which is home. Our second, the about HTML, which is the about page. Our third, the gallery HTML, which is the gallery page. And the fourth, our video HTML, which is the video page. Save, refresh, review. I still don't like the blue in my header, so let's change the color by giving our anchor element site-wide style. Let's go back to our CSS page and select the anchor element, give it the attributes color valued white, and remove the underline by giving it the attributes text decoration value none, which removes the default style into our anchor element. Go to our CSS style sheet. And give it an anchor element. With attributes, color, value white, and attributes text, decoration, value none. Once again, on the style sheet, create an anchor element with attributes color valued at white and text decoration valued at 9. Save, refresh, review. Now that we have active links for our future pages on the HTML sheet, let's go back to our style sheet and style the nav element as well as the list element. If I create a nav element on the style sheet, it would style all navigation site-wide, and I don't want that. I specifically want the nav element that is encased within the header element. I select this specific one by specifying both elements together as such. Header, nav element. This points the direction of whatever attributes encased within the curly brackets directly to the navigation encased in the header. Let's give it the float attribute with a value of right. This attribute floats any element to its farthest side of whatever container it's encased in. Anytime you float one object in a container, you have to float the object that you want it to align with. So let's add float attributes with the value of left to our logo and title as well. So on our style sheet, we create a header nav, and we want to give it the attributes float with the value of right. We want to add float to the header image element and value it at left. And we want to float our title element to the left as well. Now, as far as the title is an ID element. So technically, we can just write and just add that to we can just add float to our existing ID title element. Let's repeat. In our CSS sheet, we want to add a header nav element. The attributes float, valued right. Then add a header image element with the attributes float, left. And then to our ID title element, we want to add a float attribute valued left. Save, refresh, review. Now we need to create rules for each of the encased nav elements to get them to behave as we want. Let's create in our style sheet the following elements: nav, nav, unordered list, nav, unordered list, list elements. And one more. Nav, unordered list, list, anchor. Once again, in the CSS style sheet, create a nav element, a nav unordered list element, a nav unordered list element, and a nav unordered list anchor element. Let's take our block level list element and display them inline while retaining their block level features by giving our nav unordered list element a display attribute valued inline block. Curly brackets, display attribute, the value of inline block. Closing curly bracket down here. On the same element, add a list style attribute valued at none to get rid of the bullets. I'll create some space. Add a list style attribute value of none to get rid of the bullets. Now add some spacing between the items by adding the margin attribute valued at 20 pixels. Add a margin. Valued at 20 pixels. Close. Or rather, which we're gonna put right here to save space. Once again, repeat. To our nav unordered list element, we want to add a display attribute inline block. A list attribute of none. And a margin attribute valued at 20 pixels. Save, refresh, review.
After reviewing our website, I noticed that the navigation color or the text in the navigation color is black and therefore cannot be seen in our header. Therefore, I want you to go back to your style sheets and go to your nav unordered list element and give it a color attribute valued at white. Then go down to your nav unordered list anchor element and give it a color attribute valued at white and a text decoration attribute valued at none. Although we listed in the anchor element a color valued at white and a text decoration valued at none, the anchors that are in your nav would be distinguished differently because they are listed within the nav unordered list element. Save, refresh, review. Now let's go back to the website, or let's take another look at the website. Notice how if you hover over great men, you would get an indicator that shows that it is a link. Yet when you go to your navigation and you hover over home, about, gallery, or video, you don't get that indication. We need to fix this. Let's go back to our index sheet and go into the nav UL link anchor elements. Notice that the closing anchor element is before the home, the about, the gallery, and the video, which automatically makes the home, about, gallery, and video name tags instead of incorporating it in the link. We need to take the closing tag and put it on the opposite side of the home, about, gallery, and video, which would incorporate those names within the anchor. Erase the closing anchor tags and put them on the opposite side or the right side of the home, about, gallery, and video. Again, erase the closing anchor tags and put them on the opposite side or the right side of the home, about, gallery, and video. Save, refresh, review.
Now let's go to our CSS style sheet and add more style to the div ID title element that encases our H1 element. First, we want to contain its width with a width attribute to a value that reduces it out of our nav element space, allowing all three elements to neatly be contained in our headers environment. Finally, we want to add a padding to the left side to separate it from our logo. In our style sheet, add to the ID title element the attributes width valued at 350 pixels and a padding left attribute valued at 20 pixels. Once again, in the CSS style sheet, we want to add to the ID title element a width attribute with a value of 350 pixels. And a padding left attribute valued at 20 pixels. Closing curly brackets. Depending on how long your title is, the width of your title box may need to be longer or shorter. Save, refresh, review. This concludes this episode of the Basic HTML and CSS Introductory Series. Please like and continue in order with the next episode. Please also take the time to let the sponsor's message that precedes these lessons play out in its entirety. It takes less than a minute and truly helps us to cover a little of the expense it costs us to provide these coding lessons. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.